Good morning and welcome to your daily Game Face and Happy New Year from Dr. Kim Lannon here, starting the new year out with Lou Blasi.
You have a moose.
On the loose. Oh, I'm like, where do I have a moose? I have on my coffee mug on the back. It's my sticker from Loon Mountain.
Have you ever seen a moose?
And on the other...
We've had this discussion, right?
Oh my God, did you just have a dementia moment?
No, maybe. It's entirely possible.
We've been doing this for how long? And we've talked about moose forever. Yes,
Yeah.
you know, remember I showed you pictures.
You shadowed the bus.
Well, that was a different... Shh, don't tell on me. And then on this side, I have my Wildcat Sanctuary sticker. I decorate my cup.
Is Tammy hiring?
Why?
Someone who might be interested.
Are you being serious?
Semi.
Oh, who?
Yeah.
You?
No, God, no.
Oh, probably. I can find out.
All right.
Why? Who is it? I guess you'll tell me later.
Yeah, I'll tell you
It's a
later.
random. Okay. So anyway, good morning and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
I haven't seen you in forever
I know.
because, you know, it was the holidays and we usually have our podcast, but the holidays screwed up the week.
Yep.
So our weeks got really messed up. So I'm back.
Hopefully we're back in
In the swing. Well, we're not in the
That's
whole...
right.
I will be away on vacation next week.
Yep.
So unfortunately, you will all have to listen to a different podcast or just go back and replay one of my old ones. So right out of the
We'll
gate.
do Ron for 2 hours.
Oh.
No, I'm just kidding.
Everyone tune into Ron. The Ghost Chronicles that you guys never talk about ghosting. Unless I'm on the show, then we talk about ghosting.
You talk about paranormal.
No, you don't. You
Yes,
talked about state capitals and stupid stuff.
Oh, that was several weeks ago.
Several
Keep
weeks.
up.
That was like 8 months ago, actually. So anyway, good morning.
Good morning.
I'm saying it again. So this is the new year, and so right out of the gate, let's start off like really fresh and really good because, you know, even though I say we should always start every day just as if it's the new year, this is the year of. I told everyone on Christmas morning, this is the year of Kim. And therefore, everyone looked at me and was like, wow.
Yeah.
And I had to explain that I think it's super important for people to live in authenticity of themselves. And I don't think people do that enough. And so I was thinking about how to talk about this with my clients. And I had been talking about it with my clients, but also the year of you, like not in a selfish way, but in how do you do that? And so many people don't live for themselves. They live for external things, live for external people. They're driven by guilt, shame. They're driven by money.
Internal and external, by the way.
Right. They're driven by things that, you know, on one level, they're, you know, fine, I guess, to some degree. Well, not everything. But I think by and large, even for people that don't show up in a wellness office like mine, which is now also what I'm calling it instead of a mental health office, because I think it's a wellness office. People who've been seeing me for years, they come in and they consider it, this is their wellness time, right? They come in and talk about themselves, not in a way that is problematic. They come in for wellness checkups. They come in, you know, I have long timers that consider it beyond life coaching, more like a wellness moment, and really focusing and centering themselves on a weekly or biweekly basis, sometimes monthly. So, you know, I have a handful of clients that I've had for 20 years plus, and that's how they consider it. And I was thinking about kind of, you know, what's my refresh for the year? What's my new thing? And it's really not new. It's more like reframing it to, this is the year of you. And so when I told people at Christmas and New Year's that this was the year of Kim, they all giggled because it sounds funny, but when I explain it, it has some factors that go into it. And I think that, you know, I could talk all day long already about, you know, we're at the 8th day of January, the gym's been packed, and I giggle to myself about that too, because I know that's going to wane away and all the things that come with the New Year's resolutions. And, you know, I encourage my whole collection of patients and clients to not do that whole resolution thing, come up with, you know, my standard shtick that's not about resolutions, just being authentically you on a daily. So my first thing, obviously, that I talk about, and then I'm going to move into some new things, is live with intention, living with intention on a daily basis. Now, here's what I get from that. People will ask me, what is living with intention? So it can mean a variety of different things, which is, you know, one of the problems with that whole sentence, and then the whole theories that go out with that. But living with intention can be as simple as just getting up in the morning and taking 2 minutes. I'm serious, just anywhere from 30 seconds to 2 minutes to set what is your day right now. What is today going to be about for you? You might go to work or take all that out, the work or the school or the family, just what is it going to be for you? What is your intention? My intention for today is to be happy today. My intention for today is not let things have an impact on me like they did yesterday, like whatever, I'm just giving examples, right? So having the ability to just focus on self, of just in the moment of your own boundary of your body, your mind, your soul, your spirit, and really contain that into wellness of you. When I usually ask that of people, I get the intention for the day is to make someone else happy, to make someone else smile. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's really focusing in on you, because then you can do those things. And I think that that's where I shifted that in this past year for a lot of my clients, is to be able to shift out to authentically live in your own moment, your own self. And then that gives you the ability to do all the other things that you want to do for other people and family and friends and so on.
It's the famous put your mask on first.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's why they tell you, so you can take care of other people.
Exactly. And most importantly, take care of yourself, because people are obviously using that metaphor. You're not taking, you don't put that mask on yourself, right? Or you put on halfway, it's still not going to work the most effectively. So now here's one of the things that comes up, and I'm going to jump ahead a little bit, obviously, because we're already there, to talk about different, I actually wrote a list because I wanted to be on point. So I was calling it finding your inner peace, right? So living the year of you, finding your inner peace, which will give you the outside external gratification that you hopefully will need and get. But it's about, there's a couple of things, but one of them is, stop checking in on people who don't check in on you. Now that sounds really mean and cold, but let me explain before people go, oh, that's so mean and cold. It's about that. And this came up to me as my first one on the list yesterday, because I had this conversation with a patient yesterday about, you're working harder than that other person. And you're checking in with them when they have put up a boundary. This particular thing had happened, and people do this all the time. Put up a boundary, an outside boundary on a person, and say, I want space, I want time, whatever, relationship. And okay, but then you're doing this chase. You're doing this, if I love you more, if I love you harder, if I do more for you, you will love me more, you will love me harder. When in fact, that just doesn't work. And, we can go into codependency and all the things, but let's just keep it simple today to keep the authenticity of self, is that you're really looking at, if you are a person who continually checks on people, but you don't get checked in on yourself, or you get minimally checked in on, and people don't ask you, you have to figure out why. Is that because you don't, do you not accept help? Do you not ask for help? Are you living in a fear of being embarrassed and shamed for needing help, or wanting to have someone take care of you?
That's a guy thing.
That's a many person thing.
Yeah.
It really is. Yeah. There's a sign of weakness. We're
not supposed to need checking in on or help. Or
right.
Like,
And strong perceived people are not, squeaky wheels. You have a family. I see this all the time. I'll see a family, 3 or 4 people, and they've got kids and whatever. And, they'll be like the middle child, and we'll just use it as a generic. The middle child gets forgotten, right? The forgotten middle child. Why? Because they're not the squeaky wheel, right? The older one is doing whatever, the younger ones are doing the other. And then there's the one in the middle that just kind of just does, and they just assume they're doing really great and everything's fine because they're getting good grades, or they're doing really well in sports and no one ever complains about them. And meanwhile, they silently suffer, which is one of the little syndromes, I call it. The syndromes that come up because there's that forgotten middle child thing, is that they go seeking out things for themselves, or they detach themselves from the family eventually because they feel neglected. I see this a lot with families that have a really unwell child growing up and a really well child growing up. And because of what I do, I see for a living, I see a lot of this. Like I'll see
The unwell child
the
draws all the attention.
The unwell child draws tons of attention, not in a bad way, because they're just unwell. It doesn't mean also mental health wise. It could be just a medical condition, but that also forces the other child into more of an adultified or parentified role when they're younger or even older. And so then that child becomes the one that ends up with anxieties or worries that they stuff, and then they don't take care of themselves because they're really looking to they take care of other people because that's what they've been trained to do from a young age, and not really take care of themselves, because then that would be selfish, or that would be wrong, or they compare themselves. As kind of like the survivor guilt with veterans. If I take care of someone else when look how bad their situation is, and I don't have anything wrong with me really, so why should I complain? It's that dance that people do in their head, but that's still living outside of your own authenticity. Of you still have to take care of you, and you have to ask for what you need, and you don't always have to check in on everybody else in hopes that you're going to get checked in on.
Seems like a mom thing too, because you're supposed to be the supplier, right? Mm-hmm. Especially with the kids, and you're supposed to be a wife to the husband, and you're not expected to need support and help.
Well, and I think that's a common. So first thought, I was like, oh, that's the sexist part of that, right? Because it's that gender bias, but it's still very much there.
But it comes from roles that we're taught when we're young.
Right. It's still that role. I think it's changed a little bit, but certainly that role is there because it's a hardwired thing into females to be nurturers. And so therefore that very particular type of style is there. And then on the flip side, if someone is doing what I'm saying, oftentimes they'll get criticized for being selfish. How could you put your needs first? It's like, that's okay. So it's called balancing this out so that you're not sacrificing your integrity and your own stability and your own sense of well-being because you give everything out to someone else in hopes that you're going to get that in return. It's like people also who I have several friends that have jobs that, and I say to them often, the more you do, the less they're going to give you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the more you produce, the more you think. It's like relationships. The more you do overtime, the more you think that they're seeing how awesome you're doing, the more you do more tasks, the more you think that you're going to get kudoed. No, you're not. No. That doesn't mean you shouldn't do a great job at what you're doing. But it doesn't mean also that you should go in expecting that because you're doing something that you haven't been asked that they're going to say applause, 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 and you're going to get this raise and all these things. You're not, because the expectation is, and this is throughout time, the expectation is that, oh, you've trained me how to now treat you, which is I expect that you're just going to do that and I don't have to give you anything for it.
Yeah.
Because the boundary doesn't come up.
That's a key point, right? For people being aware that you train people how to treat you.
Yes.
And again, it goes back to you have more control over your outcomes than you think.
Right.
The responses you're getting from people you've trained them to give you.
Exactly.
In large part.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's really at a core base of where this conversation is today about when you train someone how to treat you, you constantly go through life, if you're not doing good self-awareness checks, wondering why people don't treat you different or better.
Right.
And it's because
you've taught them.
You've taught them.
Yeah.
You've taught them that they don't have to treat you different or better or in other ways. So you have to take an inventory of yourself. And that's hard for people, but it's such a good beneficial exercise to take an inventory of yourself. Even if that's part of your intention for the next day or two, is I want to take an intentional inventory of myself to see where I do that and where I want to stop doing that. And I often get kickback, how I do all sides of this, right? I get the kickback of, but,
yeah.
But if I do that, then, oftentimes they won't love me. The fear of losing love or the fear of losing, it's harder than it looks. So, it's easier said than done. Well, yes, but if you never try and if you never put little baby steps in to start doing that, you're never going to change this.
And it's tougher to undo than to do correctly the first time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. But, my famous saying to my clients is you had 30, 40, 50 years to walk into these woods. And if you think if you're going to walk out of them in a day, and I say, it's not going to be 40 years. So you're 40 years old. It's not going to be 40 years, but it might be 4.
Yep.
It might be, it depends on how hard you work at it. Because most clients ask me, especially at the beginning, how long will it take me to get better? And I think I should do a book chapter on, the questions clients ask, it's like, and I know it's that instant gratification coming right out of the gate. It's, tell me it's going to be a couple weeks and I'm done.
And my doctor is telling me I can take a pill to fix this.
Right. Yeah. And oh my gosh, I just had so many conversations in the past 2 days about these things, because it's on people's minds about like that, take the pill. You don't have to do the work, very, very importantly around
weight loss, anxiety, almost everything.
Well, I was just going to say the whole weight loss thing. Yeah. I just had this conversation with multiple of my clients and people in my life in the past couple of days about, the misnomer about like Ozempic, Wegovy, and Zepbound, right? Is that you can eat whatever you want. That's a no. You can eat whatever you want and keep the weight off and stay on the shot. And then once you get to your weight, then you can just come off of it. So it's like, that's, but that's living in the instant gratification. So I have, people that I work with that, they've gone the route of let's eat, a donut, let's eat French fries, let's eat, and they're losing all their weight because the medication does it for them. But I keep saying, you are going to get down to your 120 pounds and you started at 280. And 2 months after you stop the drug, that weight's going to be halfway back on you because it comes back in vengeance, because you're not changing the behavioral strategy. You're not taking your inventory of what do you need to do. It's very simple. So like you break each of these things down, like whether it's anxiety or weight loss or finances, you break that weight loss thing down, for instance, and you put it into the context of behavioral. Make sure you're in motion, moving, making sure you're doing strength training, making sure you're doing, the things that keep you healthy. And at the same time, you have to be making healthy choices for your foods so that when you come off of the drugs, if you do, which obviously drug companies don't want, but, if you come off of them, that you have the ability to be mindful of the retrained brain and the neurological patterns of portion size that's real and realistic, and also the foods that you eat. So people, I would say, because I have 15 people right now in my practice that are on weight loss drugs.
Wow.
And then I have additional people outside of my practice that are on it. And I think that's the number one thing is like, talk about, taking care of someone else, not taking care of oneself. They have very good advice, and they do. I've heard them. They're telling family members, they're telling friends, like, do this, but they're not doing it.
Right.
they're doing the instant gratification of the weight loss pill. I could jump over and talk about anxiety the same way. People want, and for some people it works great because they only take it as needed. So once in a great while, they'll have like a Klonopin, or they'll have a propanolol, or they'll have, no problem with that. But it's when you get into the dependency of, well, I don't need to really do the work. I just start feeling anxious, or I get that fluttery feeling, or I have a bad thought. I'm just going to take a pill for it. Your brain never gets into the motion of take care of self first. So in the context of how I started the show, it's you must take the inventory to be intentionally taking care of yourself first. And is that taking care of yourself first? That's slapping a Band-Aid on it. That's not really taking care of it. Why not do some of the work to do it? So this goes to the year of you is slow yourself down, allow yourself, give yourself permission to sit with your shit and be okay with that. Now, that's easier said than done, right? Yep. Because people hate hearing that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to, it's like, I don't want to be okay with myself. I don't want to sit with uncomfortability. I don't want to hear about this. I don't want to do this.
Because the preferred narrative, the preferred conclusion is it's out of my hands. So when you have to look in the mirror and, hey, I have to take control and find out that you do have control over your outcomes.
Right.
That's not what people want to hear.
Right.
They want to be victims. They want to think it's all external.
I wouldn't say that let me rephrase what you said. I don't think anyone wants to be a victim, but people become accustomed to being victim.
Well, as opposed to being responsible for where you are.
And it's easier to be in the role that is not working for you because it has become so comfortable than it is to change it and get into something else. So I'd rephrase it in that way, because that's like saying, people who are in addiction want to be an addict. No, they don't, right? Nobody wants to be a victim, but it looks like on the surface that they do, because it comes so easy and it's the way that their life goes.
Right.
And that's the way that they end up. It's a coping strategy, essentially, in many ways. Now, we're using the term victim here broadly, because then I'm thinking about people listening and people thinking about sexualized victims. That we're not talking about that. So I'm going to change your word and just say that it's really about.
They want to feel like it's out of their control.
They want to. I think people just want to feel okay with being the way that they are, and just let that be, and just have something that can just sort of band-aid them. Because that's enough. You're satisfied with enough. And I don't think that authentically living in the year of you is just settling, which is another point on my list, by the way. It's number 6 on my list, but I'll jump from 1 to 6, is not settling for just okay, not settling for average. I often tell my athletes, are we shooting for the top? Or are we shooting for mediocrity? Student athletes, especially, like we've got academics and athleticism, are we shooting for the middle? Or are we shooting for the top?
Yeah.
We shoot for the top. If we land in the middle, but we were shooting for the top, great. Right. But if we're shooting for mediocrity, we're right. And I think that the culture is still shooting for mediocrity so much of the time. We have so much of the, I'm going to flash it back to when I was an athlete full on, which I'm still an athlete, but when I was a gymnast and I was at the high level of gymnastics at the Olympic level, and elite level, it was that people would ask me when I was a kid, like 10, 11, 12, like it was that double-edged sword of like, oh, you're so great. Do a run on the beach, do a run of back handsprings and, all the stuff. Yay. Right. And then it would be the turnaround and be like, ugh, you're such a show off. Like, and I learned really quickly, like probably in my early, 13, 14, like, oh, this is a very sharp edged sword on both sides, and I'm not going to play anymore. So I remember specifically being in that mode in my head, which I think adults don't get to until they're way into their adulthood of, oh no, this is a life lesson. And I knew then that when someone asked me, I would say no. I'd start saying no, I won't. Or I'd say I'm off duty.
Yeah.
Like kind of like what I do now when people ask me for advice and I'm not working, if I'm really not in the mood, I'll be like, oh, I'm off duty.
Yeah.
Or, and I learned that I'm off duty, and also it protected me from getting the shot back at, I didn't do anything selfishly. I didn't do something selfish. You asked me to do something, and then you were annoyed by the fact that I did it, and then you dug at me. So that happens to people all the time in various situations. And then they get, and I'm really focusing on the piece of, it's selfish. It's selfish of you to be successful. It's selfish of you to show that you're successful. It's, all those things. No, it's not. But it's how you do it. It's how you deliver it. And so I think that when you take care of yourself, I don't talk about what I do for a living, for instance. I don't, when I'm out and about, like somebody else might bring it up, but then I downplay it, not because I am ashamed. I love what I do. I'm loving what I'm doing, but it's about that you have humility, and it's not about needing to talk about it, because you have to be okay with yourself. And when people, I have a colleague that talks about themselves and their work all the time, and it's a lot.
That's their self-identity.
Well, that's their self-identity, and that's what they fall on. And, and so like when I leave the office, I'm thinking about vacation and the next thing, and what are we doing on the weekend, and the cats. And
you doing the job, they're them. When they're on the job, that's them.
Right, exactly. And
or
so,
even throughout their life, that's them.
Well, right. Yeah. And that's the creation of that space of like not settling for, you have your home and your job. That's not living your full, authentic, intentional life. Is just if you have your job and you have your home. What else is bringing you joy and fulfillment? Because people are always looking for joy and fulfillment. And then, especially at the new year, this comes up because they're like, oh, it's a refresh time. That's why I called it refresh, But, in a couple of months, it's going to be right back in the pattern if you do not live in that intentional space on a daily basis. And that's why I say 30 seconds to 2 minutes. a day, because that's really all it takes. But people work too hard at that even, and then they give up because they think that, I can't come up with anything. I'll say, if you have to do 7 days in a row with the same exact intention, it's better to do that and state it out loud to yourself in the morning that today I'm going to live with, not being impacted by negativity, or today I'm going to live with, negative thoughts that I can flip, or, something that's really good for you. But people then go, oh, that's not enough. It's like, it's not meeting this expectation standard that I have to produce some great event. So I think that goes into the settling, and not settling for your mediocrity of your average, going back into what your average thought processes or your average behaviors are, or so on and so forth. So the first one was stop checking in with others that don't check in on you all the time, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's very specific. And then also, don't settle for less than you deserve. Okay. And then I think this one's funny to me, because on the podcast, I when I wrote it, I'm like, well, on the podcast, I over-explain things sometimes because I feel like I have to, because it's the podcast. But one of my kind of rules with my clients and patients is, you don't need to over-explain things. You don't need to say so many words. So I bit my tongue when I was writing this out, going, well, I'm going to get feedback that's like, well, you over-explain on the podcast. I'm like, well, it's educational, and it's, some people have no idea when I mention things what they mean. But in general, in life, people feel the need to explain away themselves,
Justify their
justify
positions.
who they are as people, and apologize for themselves in ways that are even subtle. And so that's what that encompasses, is stop over explaining. It doesn't mean like over explaining, about a concept. This is about stop justifying for who you are. Don't apologize because, that I'm sorry. The person says I'm sorry in your life all the time. Even, they trip over a carpet and they say I'm sorry, but they didn't do anything to you. They spill something and they say they're sorry. They say something and then they say they're sorry before it's always the I'm sorry. And I'm always asking people when they do that, like, did you do something wrong? Did you do something to hurt me? Did you, and always the answer is no. And I'm like, well, then what are you apologizing for?
Yeah.
Or if it's not that blatant, it's that description that a person will over explain of why they did something and what happened, and, and explains away the behavior. I think a really good example of this is, I've been doing some parenting work with a few clients, and working on saying I'm sorry to their children. Because some parents have a hard time saying I'm sorry. People in general have a hard time saying I'm sorry. But saying I'm sorry and letting that land for what it is, as I'm sorry for doing that to you, or I'm sorry for making you feel that way. And that's it. And I know so many adults that do this. It's the I'm sorry that that I made you feel that way, but this is what you did to make me do that. Right? That is a really common problem with parents and kids that I see. And then it's also, I see it in all around me. People will say, oh, I'm sorry that I did that, but it was in response to you doing that, but I'm sorry. That's not an apology.
Yeah.
If it doesn't stop with, I'm sorry, I hurt your feelings, then it's not an apology. If you give someone the apology and then you're taking it back and taking it away, you are not authentically living in your moment, because you are making an excuse for yourself, apologizing for yourself, and over explaining that I'm sorry, and now I'm going to explain why I did it because you made me do it. That's an over explain, and that's not necessary.
I think people also over explain because they need confirmation.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be a problem. I mean, if you have a position, you have a thought, you have a feeling, you have a moral, it's like, this is what it is. I'm okay if you're not in agreement, but this is what it is.
Well, I think
most people want to convince the other person and get that affirmation.
Well, I think there's two pieces there. I think that when it's around a specific concept and context, for sure, that is. But I think in general, if we just look at the general sense, it's that seeking belonging, attachment, acceptance, affirmation, love. Mm-hmm. And overall, whether it's in one context or the other, but that's what it ends up being. And when you over-explain to get liked, or you over-explain to get love, it goes back to that first thing of like, don't overdo to get someone. Don't love harder thinking you're going to get loved harder back.
Yeah.
because that's not going to happen. Like they all go together. So when you start over explaining, or you're explaining yourself to make someone like you more, attached to you more, because you justify it and you think that, oh, phew, they don't think anything. You can't control for what the other people are thinking, because once something's out of the gate, it's out, and people are going to judge it for whatever they do. You can't control for that. But that's how people, these are all tactics that people use to get and shape relationships to make them feel better. That's that external intention versus what you just said. Sit with yourself. Sit with, I have a thought, a feeling, an emotion, an opinion, a moral code, or whatever it is, and be okay with that, and be okay with if that person that doesn't like it.
Yep.
So that brings me to,
well, hopefully you're in relationships with people that you feel like even if they aren't fully on board with you on that particular thought, everything's okay.
Yeah,
we don't agree, and that's okay. I still love you. You still love me.
Well, that would be nice. That would be
those are the best relationships.
Well, those are the best relationships, but those are the ones that those are the ones you have to really seek out and find. And I find that they're few and far between. If you only get a couple people in your whole lifetime that are in your life like that, you're lucky.
Yeah.
Because that's just not the norm to have that, because people are, if everyone's living without the intention of living for the you of taking care of self in a healthy way, then you don't have that.
Yeah. Because
then when you do have people that can have conflict or disagree or have, opposite opinions or feelings or whatever, but they can still love each other and still get along, that means that they're coming from their space, that they're taking care of their intentional self.
Yeah.
And they're still okay. And it brings me to, this killed me last week. You're going to laugh. I just have to say this. So, I'm going to do this as a self-aggrandizing thing here.
Okay.
So for the past 5 years that we've been on the air and I've been doing the show, right? 5 years, right?
Sure. Yeah.
In February. I just lost my train of thought because I was thinking about how long I've been on the air. That's so funny.
I try not to think about it.
Oh God.
Yeah.
That's funny. Oh, so I have talked, and I've talked many times about, it's not, something happens. If it's out of your control, it's a them issue, not a you issue. It's nothing that you have, if someone's doing something or someone's going to do anything or think something, they're going to do. Like I give advice to clients, they don't do it. It's not a me issue, it's a them issue, So, and very, very varied variations. Ooh, that was a lot. Varied variations of that concept have come out in my practice for 30 years of, you got to let other people just be them and just let them be them. Yep. If it impacts you and you don't like it, you got to figure out how to respond, react, and change it. But at the end of the day, you got to let them be who they are so that you stay authentically in your own space, and they're going to do their thing. So in the past 2 weeks, do you know where I'm going with this?
No, I don't.
Okay. So Mel Robbins, do you know who she is? And I'm going to plug her here, and I shouldn't plug her because then it's probably going to give her more money.
Sounds familiar.
But okay. Yeah. So Mel Robbins, not Tony Robbins, but Mel Robbins is a woman writer, psychologist, I believe psychologist, maybe sociologist. I haven't even, whatever. So she wrote a book called Let Them.
Let Them.
And I'm like, I'm like, that's the whole book is like the stuff that I have read through excerpts, and I'm like, oh man, it's like, when you want to write the book and you don't, because you got to wait for
book. Yeah.
Right. I should have written the book.
Yeah.
So, but I'm going to plug it because it is actually a really good book. And it's sold out right now, and you can't get it for like 3 more weeks because it's so sold out. But it's called the Let Them Theory. But that's the thing I'm talking about this whole concept today is living your authentic self by being able to be comfortable in your own space and let them be who they are. If they don't like you, if they don't agree, you have to let other people do what they're going to do without you being compromised, sacrificing yourself, over explaining to them or trying to get people to love you more. You've got to do that. So I guess I'm advertising for her for the concept that I have been talking about for 30 years, but it's really about that whole concept is let them.
The funny thing is that's as if you have a choice.
Well,
because you don't.
And that's the thing.
Yeah.
It's so basic, which is why it makes me crazy that, you know, and God love her, because by the way, if you read her book, but also if you know her story, which I wanted to know her background, that, I mean, she was bankrupt. She was getting divorced. She was, I think she had $400 in her bank account. She was getting divorced. She may have been suicidal. I've heard that might not be true. Like, there were all these bad things, and she went and wrote the book, or she had written the book and it hit and whatever. So she'd been struggling along the way, and she had my theory. So she's now a multi-bajillionaire, and here I am. But her concept is exactly, she just named it something different than I talk about it as words, but it's let them, because you don't have another choice. That's not a you issue. And that's my clients like it when I say that. It's a them issue, not a you issue.
So important in today's social media society. You have to exercise that constantly.
Yes, is that it's not a, well, you just said social media, and I had all these people that are talking about all the stuff that's coming up, especially yesterday, because of all the stuff that happened on Facebook and Meta and Mark Zuckerberg and blah, blah, blah. And there, all these people, so many people, they get all these political things and they get all this stuff in their feeds. And I'm like, now, because I'm talking about it, my phone will probably pick it up and I'll have all this crap on my feed. But I get puppies and kitties and rainbows and butterflies and good feeling mindset stuff. I very rarely get a sneeze.
Ready?
Oh God, sorry, excuse me. I very rarely get that, but I think that goes to that whole piece about let them. Like, this is just, let them. It's, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Like, and that does not mean that you become or get confused that this is becoming complicit or compliant or complacent. Ooh, 3 different C's, right? But it means that you cannot do anything on social media to change. And I watch wars go on between people on occasion. I'm like, this is such a waste of time. I giggle.
Yeah.
I actually watched it had nothing to do with politics, but it had everything to do with just people warring over something really stupid on a private Facebook feed for a cruise line. We'll just put it like that.
Okay.
And it was over the most.
Was it a cruise war?
It was a cruise war, and it was the most inane. But people were going to battle, and I just, in my head, I had it. And this was before Mel Robbins' book came out, and I knew about this like a week or 2 ago. I was laughing because I'm like, just let it go. Let them. Who cares? It's so stupid, you guys. Like, and now at this point, there were 400 or 500 posts on this one post. I'm like, oh my God. But it was entertainment. But it fed my whole thought process of, let them do whatever they're going to do, and it's going to fall out. But you had the people taking like the moral road. You had people taking the get around it illegal. You had all this stuff going on. I'm like, oh my God, just let it go.
Yep.
And I thought one of the posters was awesome because they put up, well, now that you put up your real name and this thing, you've alerted everybody to it. So congratulations. I was like, there you go, but they were right. It's like, now, and to my point, let them. Yep. Now it's out there so the whole world can see it, because it's obviously registered to the cruise company and they're following it, and they're going to flag you.
Yep.
And they know everything that everyone's been saying. That was not a post I posted on. And I didn't even like it. I just watched because it was entertaining.
That was a corner I had to turn. I was, as you know,
yes,
I was fairly active in a lot of stuff, and now it's like, and sometimes I even get to the point now where I'll write a response, but I won't post it.
Yeah. See,
just exercise the response, just to process it, I guess.
So I agree with you. So a couple years ago, I would have been, you and I've had conversations on the show about being able to let go and let them and so on. I just scroll through. I read it and giggle, and I roll my eyes and I think about the emojis, because I'm the person that if I put something in, like I think I told you this, right? A couple of weeks ago, I put in the word yuck on something, the word yuck.
Yep.
And I got flagged for putting yuck in the word yuck. And so I appealed it. I think it was on TikTok. It was on TikTok because I just put yuck, and it was on something like a food thing.
You appealed to the Chinese government?
Yeah, I did. And they still banned me from the post. I'm like, oh,
Well, a turning point for me in my life was becoming very stingy about my mental energy.
Well,
being
that's
very
part of
conscious. Yeah, being very conscious of where it goes and how much I put into things
Right.
that don't really affect me, that I can't have any effect on. That's just irrelevant. I just try not to give it up. Save it for the stuff that's important.
It's so hard for people to do that, and I think it's such a really good concept to activate. I had a client talking to me about going to getting invited to a wedding, right? Perfect example. Getting invited to a wedding. His brother got invited to the wedding. Another brother didn't get invited to the wedding. My client who got invited to the wedding was like, I'm going to go, I need to have your advice because I'm going to go talk to her about why she didn't invite the other. And I looked at him and I said, it is not your circus and not your monkeys. Yep. And if you put yourself into the circus, you are creating a problem. It's her wedding. It's not your wedding. Yeah. And I'm sorry that your brother didn't get invited, but it's none of your business. There's obviously a reason why. So it was great because we got to a place where he saw the 45 minutes, but it took 45 minutes to get to the concept of let her be. Who are you to insert yourself here? Who are you to take the high road of, I'm going to have a moral compass on talking for someone else? This doesn't even involve you.
Yep.
And so we went through all the facets of it, which is what you have to really do when you are doing it for yourself. And it came out that at the end, he was like, oh my God, I feel so much better because and he realized I'm getting influenced by 20 people in my family that how dare she?
Right.
And it's like, well, there's a reason. And, and I said, do you know the reason? He was like, no. And I said, before you start jumping in and jumping down her throat and being all rah and carrying the torch down the path, wouldn't we want to know why? And do you really want to have the balls to ask her why? Because that's overstepping because you got invited.
But how about accepting? There is just accept as a reason.
Well, that's what we got to. Yeah. Is that? But we had to break it all down because a person, anybody that has this very much it's about me. Everything's about me.
Yep.
But not in the healthy way. But it's not. It's about them. Mm-hmm. That was a decision a person outside of your control made, and you don't need to go over explain it. You don't have to take care and check in with all the people, right?
Right.
You don't have to now settle for something that you don't actually have anything to do with. And here's my list of inner peace. Make yourself have inner peace. Why are you getting yourself involved instead of just letting them be?
Right.
Like, how's this impacting you?
Choose to go or choose not to go.
Well, and I said that. I said, you don't have to go if you don't want to, if it's bothering you. He's like, oh no, I want to go. I'm like, so, and I had to ask, I said, are you invested in the drama?
Some people very much just love conflict.
Well, and the chaos. And I point out that, weddings and funerals and babies, they create monsters in people. It's like, they didn't invite this person. They invited that person. Can you believe that person got sat with that person? I'm like, that's why eloping is good. And going on far away places, or just don't get married.
Is acceptance anywhere on that list? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's all about acceptance.
It's all about acceptance.
The whole thing is accepting that if you just let others be, as long as they're not, so it's about boundaries.
Right.
It's about your inner peace boundary. As long as you're not allowing them to encroach on your boundary, then you can disagree with it. You can not like it. You can, if someone asks you and says, what do you think? And you really feel the need to say what you think, then you choose that. But at the end of the day, you just have to accept that what are you doing? How are you acting? How is it impacting you? How do you want it to impact you? Are you creating more crap for yourself? Like, people who have anxiety, why get into more catastrophizing and go down a worry place? It's, I say that about worry. What is worry? Worry is like praying for something bad to happen, right? It's the same thing of these things. If you're not letting people just do their thing, and then, like the whole thing yesterday coming up, people were all up in arms. I must have had 4 or 5 clients yesterday. Did you hear what happened about Facebook? I'm like, then cancel your Facebook.
Yeah.
Like,
participate or don't.
Or, well, they're not going to fact check. I think and I said to every single person, and that was the end of the fact, I said, you are very smart. You can fact check for yourself. If you don't think it sounds right, fact check it yourself.
Yep.
Go to your sources and find. And they were like, oh, like, why are you relying on, you don't, need to have Meta do it for you. You don't need to have, like, if you really feel that something's off, go check it yourself. That's how you get smarter.
Yep.
And they were like, oh yeah. So it's just, it's being realistic too, because I think you get so caught up in the chaos, the opposite of your inner peace of, we live in chaos a lot. The society does, our families do, our relationships do. And it's like, well, at the end of the day, Mark Zuckerberg doesn't make a difference to you. And whether he did or didn't, and what he's doing, why he's really, let him do what he's doing. Because
who gives up the ability? Why would you let someone else tell you what the truth is?
Right. You got to, if you feel that something is off or you don't like what you're hearing,
right,
and you want to check it out, you should check it out. You should be always triangulating your information, always looking for multiple sources. You never go to one source. So if you were relying on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or whoever to tell you what the truth is, you're relying on very limited information. You've got to split,
Everything that comes at you is slanted. You have to triangulate. You have to get around.
Yeah. And triangulate. I wish there was a word for like 20 sources, right?
Quadrangulate.
Right? Because it's about taking, get away from the mainstream sources and go to sources that like have outside of what you are normal to listen to or read about or whatever, because then it helps you because you get other perspectives.
Plus make use of that slant. In other words, you read perspectives of people that have opinions that lean one way or the other, and then put them all together and come up with the truth. Figure it out.
Right.
Let someone try to convince you the other way from where you think. That's always a good exercise.
Well, and it's such a good exercise. And I think that also gives you inner peace because you're doing it for you. You're not reliant on something else externally again to find it for you or to tell you what the truth is.
Yep.
And I think, obviously in a separate conversation, but for the mental health of the country right now, I think this is a really good way to keep your inner peace is not be pulled into the news desks and listening to one or two. Like if you're going to do that and you really want to know, make sure you're out there triangulating as much as you can, because if that's what you're invested in and you want to know, unless you don't. And I certainly have clients that are very wed to one thing and that's it. And so my answer to them always is like, well, then you have to accept that that's what you're listening to.
Yeah.
Because you're choosing not to like have a different perspective. And my perspective is always, do you have any other sources for perspectives? I don't give sources. I don't say, well, do it this way or think this way. I just say, do you have other sources? Because, there's other alternatives to the thought process. That could be with anything.
Have you listened to the other side?
Or there's lots of sides.
Yeah.
There's not two sides, right? And that's like in a relationship. Are you able to see past yourself? Are you able to see past that one thing? Are you able to have empathy? Are you able to validate? What are you looking for here? Are you looking to live in peace? Or are you looking to live in chaos? Again, not being complicit, compliant, or complacent and burying your head in the sand, because people do that too and be like, it's fine, or I'm just not going to listen to anything. And then, and then you're not educated, right?
But that the empathy part of it, the listening part of it, especially in relationships, comes to tailoring approaches that work, that get things done, that keep things on track, as opposed to making it,
well,
there are 100 ways to give the particular message that you want to give. One will work for that person, another might not work for that person, and understanding is important.
So in what you're saying there, yes, the understanding when to walk away from a draining situation. So there's my fourth point, maybe?
Yeah.
Fourth point.
Yeah.
Knowing when to walk away mentally or physically, emotionally or spiritually from a situation that's draining you, that's taking away from your inner peace. Why stay in it? Why sit in the shit that you don't have to? But people do. But you're making a choice.
Get stingy about your mental energy.
You have to get stingy about your mental energy, which is about living the year of you. Like that's about, I don't need to put my invested energy into that, because that's going to aggravate me, or that's going to bother me, or it's going to ruin my day.
Yep.
And, if you've got these things doing that, it's, it's soul sucking.
Yeah.
Or I call it now these days, I've been calling it a fun sponge.
All right.
It's taking,
it's an image.
Well, it's taking it's a sponge that's taking your fun out of your life, because you're getting into these chaotic things in your head, because that's what it is. It's internal chaos. It gives you cognitive dissonance. It gives you that cognitive conflict. It gives you that miserable feeling, or that anxiety feeling. And that's a fun sponge. You don't like my...
No, I do.
I like my fun sponge.
No, it's fun. No, I like it.
Yeah. So you're like, that's an interesting thing. I like it. I should write a book now.
Yeah, the fun sponge.
The fun sponge. Because someone will someone will take it, and hear that all my listeners now, someone's going out and write my book.
Yeah, there you go.
There, and make $1 million off of it.
It's annoying, isn't it?
When I saw it, well, I just have to say, so my nephew had sent me a link on it. He says, "Have you seen this?" And I was like, "Damn!" I'm like, are you kidding me? I was like, because he goes, "It sounds like you." No, yeah. Well, she probably stole it from me. She was probably listening to my podcast. She has a podcast too. Don't listen to her podcast.
Okay.
So going back to that point about like walking away from draining things.
Yes.
And and just because it's not draining to someone else doesn't mean it's not draining to you. Hello, Mary. It's lovely, Mary from Florida. Oh, well, you can go back and you can hear the beginning of this.
It's on demand.
It's on demand, and I will recap it at the end for the points. But by the way, I just want to tell the listeners, but to Mary as well, because Mary knew that I was getting a nugget. She saw the little nugget. Mary, not only did I get one nugget, I got two.
Yeah.
I have Ash and Cinder. Ash
and Cinder.
That's their names.
I didn't get the names.
Oh, I didn't tell you the names?
No, you didn't tell me the names.
Ash and Cinder. So I haven't posted anything up about them. They went to their vet appointment this morning.
Yeah, that's why I was surprised. I didn't see anything.
Well, I haven't done it yet because I had to get them past the front door and get them in and settled. And so, but I will eventually post up, because I'm going to do, this is a total, now I'm on a tangent of something else because Mary jumped on, but they're going to be my new emotional support trained animals for my practice. So they're 3 months old.
It's an interesting choice.
Zip it.
Yep.
And hi, Leanne. Look at Leanne's like, wait, what? Everyone's
I got Leanne's attention.
I know. Well, because I have to send a picture to Leanne. See, now I'm distracted. As soon as I started talking about cats, all of a sudden everyone's like, what? All my cat people. So they're going to be my new, but so they went in today, they got all their stuff, we're good and settled. And, we're going to start introducing to the house. Oh God. I'm not worried about anybody but Bean. Bean's 22 pounds and I'm a little concerned about him. And one of them, Ash, is a boy and he still has his nuggets.
Yeah.
So I have to make sure we supervise until his go away.
Yes, Mary, 2 nuggets.
2 nuggets, both on Ash and 2 nuggets of the cat. And they're going to be, I'm going to also, because they're going to be for my practice and the emotional support animals in my practice, like, because I'm an animal assist therapist.
Yep.
I'm also going to quickly acclimate them into harness training for hiking.
Oh boy.
Yes. So
what could possibly go wrong?
No, stop, because John and I talked about this heavily, because we saw about 15 cats this year on the White Mountains hiking.
You saw 15 people hiking with cats.
Well, not at the same time.
I understand.
Over the summer. Mm-hmm. The very last hike we took of the whole year, there was a cat at the top of the mountain. Mm-hmm.
All right.
And so, it's not uncommon now. People do it a lot.
They're going to be office animals that vet bill is deductible.
Well, yes, it is. Well, that's what Mush was, and that's what Kalila was,
well, there you
and
go.
That's what Bean has been, and so Echo was, but she's retired because she's 20.
I've taken a cat for a walk.
Stop.
I have.
Oh, whatever.
I've been on a walk with a cat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I have to say, I love that Leanne's like, wait, what?
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. Oh, I realize this, but your subject speaks to me in many ways. Oh, good. So let me go back to my. Oh, Mary's jumping between what I was talking about and coming to the 2 little nuggets. Okay. Yep. So on the side, Mary, that's awesome. He tells them where to go.
Yep.
On the side for Mary and Leanne, because they're listening, I'll send you pictures after the show.
Okay.
But let me go back to my topic.
Yep.
That got me distracted. So where was I? I was talking about, I have to go to my next point because I don't want to run out of time. Yep. So, okay. So let me recap for people who have just joined so that we're getting my brain back, mostly for me.
Yep.
So we're talking about boundaries for yourself to create your inner peace.
It's the year of you.
And the year of you,
yep.
which I called the year of Kim, which then turned into the year of you. And so the first thing was to stop checking in on those who don't check on you, not in a selfish way saying it, but more that checking in with people because they check in. It's a mutual reciprocity of love and affection and appreciation, and not to get love or to love hard. Don't love harder to get loved, because it's not going to work.
And you're training them that's okay.
And you're training them how to treat you. And there's the first one. Then the second one is don't settle for less than what you deserve. So don't accept things that you just you shouldn't tolerate. Obviously, I said more about it, but
because you're training them how to treat you.
Right, because you're training them how to treat you.
Yep.
Don't feel the need to over-explain things, justify for yourself, apologize for yourself, etc., because it takes away from you. Also trains them how to treat you.
Yep.
And then the one I was just talking about before we got sidetracked into the nuggets is walk away from draining situations. And being able to really shut that off and turn that off and take care of your and the way, conserve your mental energy and not waste it on that. So how we started the show and how I said, let's start the day with an intention of what is the day going to be about for you, not how you're going to do for someone else, because that's like the outcome goal in athletics.
Yep.
Like you want the win. The win comes, but it doesn't come without the journey. You have to do the journey first. So it's about taking these steps first.
But you spend for the win, and we're in an NFL season, so go that way. You spend the whole week trying to get the win because you're doing it in small steps and drills.
Right. You're not doing it. You just don't go out on the field and play and win. You
don't go out all week and say, let's win.
Right.
You go out and work on things.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's, the premise of this is that people have a hard time doing that for themselves. Yeah. It's easier to do what's chaotic versus because of what and it's not that it's easier, but it has become the easier thing because that's what you're doing.
And it's, this time of year, I got to lose 20 pounds. No, you don't. You just have to go to the gym today.
Right,
or
exactly.
You have to change the way you ate today.
Or just don't eat the Doritos.
Yeah, you don't eat the Doritos,
right? Or the sleeve of Pringles. I had to tell a client this week that she can't keep eating sleeves of Pringles. No sleeves of Pringles.
When you want Pringles brought up.
So the next one is I've talked about this before, but this is on my inner peace list, is saying no as a full sentence without feeling guilty.
Yep.
So I have it in 2 parts today. So no is a full sentence, and then not feeling bad about saying no, because people get caught up in the fact that if you say no, you're perceived as selfish. It's socialized. Selfish. You're bad. You're perceived as being mean, cold, not caring, not loving. So no sometimes is just a no, and it's okay. And no doesn't have to be
no, it doesn't need an explanation.
Right. And that's the thing. It doesn't go into that. And people feel the need to go into the over explaining and then not set the boundary, and then they lose their inner peace because then they worry, they pray for something bad. They worry. I'm praying for something bad to happen because I am anticipating that because I said no, it's coming. Which is why people do those little white lies about things. They say, oh, I can't because this. And then I always love it when people are like, I can't do that because of this. And then they get caught. Because, it's so much easier just to be like, I can't do it. And it takes so much off of you. Imagine the times that you've said no, gave it a reason that was a lie.
Yeah.
And then you sat with that, hoping to God you wouldn't get caught with it, or hoping to God that, no one judged you and made you feel bad, and and that you were bad for saying no. And again, you're training people how to treat you, and saying no, I can't. I think when people hear that you say no, I think there's a thought of no, like you're being mean. And it's not. It's like, oh, I can't do that, or I can only do that at this time, or I'm not gonna be able to do that today, or whatever it is. It's just no is no. And people just don't feel comfortable enough to do that, because especially now, here's a gender thing. Women are very specifically trained over socialization of no is, who are you to say no?
Yeah, right.
And that has so many contexts. It could be a whole show in and of itself psychologically about how women fall prey to the no syndrome of, if you say no, what, is that really a yes? I mean, we're talking, is that a maybe? Is that, how can I manipulate you into doing something? Whether we're talking sex, whether we're talking work, whether we're talking relationships, whatever it is, anything, it's right there. And it's a whole different show. Probably could do a show on that. But the guilt piece, and the guilt is one of the emotions that we learn in the first 2 years of our life.
Yeah.
Shame and guilt, it's like right there between 0 and 3, essentially. And so, and the difference between shame and guilt, talk about inner peace, disruptors. Shame is embarrassment of I am bad. Mm-hmm. You perceive yourself as I am bad. I'm ashamed. I'm so embarrassed that, versus guilt. Guilt is much more broad sweeping, which is, I believe that you are going to think I've done something bad, or I think that I'm going to be perceived as being bad. But it's that guilty feeling of, oh, am I going to be seen as doing something wrong, or saying no, or passing on that, or not eating that person's food, or whatever it is. There's so many examples. And they're very different. Shame is much more on the underside of embarrassment and depression and narcissistic injuries. And by narcissistic injuries, I mean those hits at your soul, like you're stupid, you're not smart enough, you're fat, those things that you get as childhood messages that are in there, whatever they were. Shame comes from those things. Guilt comes from just a constant, oh, it's okay, you don't really want to do, like you get guilted into it, and it's like you don't feel comfortable just saying, I'm not going to feel guilty for saying no because I can't make it, or I just don't have the bandwidth to do that. And I've talked about this last year, coming into this year, about finding inner peace for people to say, I don't have the bandwidth, and being okay with, I'm tapped out. Like you and I, like for example, you and I could have done a show last week. I could have crammed it in, and what I say, no.
Yeah.
And I was like, let go, because it was like, whatever, it's okay. Because I felt guilty for a hot second that, I'm letting another week go by without doing it. I was like, this is ridiculous. It doesn't mean to, there's no need for that. Right. So it's with anything. So, and then getting to my last point, so that I get all of my 6 points in that I made, was, this one, being able to just have downtime and rest without that feeling of being perceived as being lazy.
Yeah.
That one.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Is people that are go, 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 and then all of a sudden they sit down.
Yeah.
And they're like, they tell their partner, I just sat down for just a second. Or, I was just outside and I came in and I needed a rest, or
all you do is sit on the couch.
Yeah. Right. Because you're worried about
the other 80 hours of the week.
Exactly. Yeah. And because you're worried about getting judged.
Yep.
You're worried that someone's going to see it as like you're wasting time, because you have a core belief somewhere in there that's been developed because someone else has trained you how to treat them. Yep. That sitting and resting is a bad thing.
Yep.
And then it doesn't give you a chance to just breathe and being able to have inner peace. So these 6 things that I've talked about today are really about there's other things too, but these are the 6 that I put down on my list of how to live life with intention. Pick one of those things. Even just picking one of those things would be a great intention for your day or for your month. It's way easier probably than trying to lose 20 pounds, and being able to really center in on your own inner peace, your own way of feeling filled up, and then you can give to others, because it becomes so much easier, because you sit with yourself so much easier, because at the seat of your soul, you're letting other people be, and you're doing your own life, and then you're not allowing or giving permission for other people to treat you in a way that you have trained them, and now you're retraining them. Yep. So you're living in a different way. So if you could take one of those pieces today and work on that, or you want to put them all down on a piece of paper, or cue card and keep them with you, and and go on out there and write the book that
stack a small win.
And write my book that didn't make me the $1 million again for another concept that I had. Yep. Do you feel me on this one? You feel my resentment?
Yep. I've had a book that's floating around in my head for like 20 years.
Well, every time
it's
I get
past,
it,
it's gone now. It can't be done. So.
See, well, mine is still on the wait for.
It can be done, but no one will care.
People have to die.
Yeah, there's that one too.
I have that one. That's the one that keeps coming up. Like, oh, I got to write that.
All right, they're finally dead.
Yeah, and then it doesn't matter right now. Yeah. So, so I am encouraging people to make this the year of you. Really embrace that. And do it with your humility of knowing that it's not selfish. It's about living your life with intention to train people to treat you the way you want to be treated, and not keep doing the patterns of the socialized stuff that we tend to do that makes us have anxiety or feel unhappy or feel like we can't get out of our own way. This really will center you. It will not happen overnight. It will not happen in a month. It will happen progressively over time. Yep. And I'll say to everybody, like I say to my clients, you walked in the woods for however many years you are now. And if you're just starting out on this path and you like this concept and you think, oh, this is a good way to start living my life. Remember, if you're 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, it's going to take you,
And it's not linear,
time.
Right? You have good days and bad days.
No, it's not linear. You're going to have days there. Wow, this was great. And maybe consecutively. And then you're going to have the days like giving up and saying, forget it. It's kind of like eating. You go great. And then all of a sudden you have a cupcake.
Yep.
And then it's what you do after that for the next choice. Do you have another cupcake and get the F-its, or do you say, okay, I had a cupcake and now I'm going to do something different?
Yep.
It's, I love how, in psychology, all this stuff can wrap together because it's choices. It comes down to your choices make you happy. And if you're living on the worry of other people's choices, then that's going to be a very harder path. Leanne just said, what if my issue is I say no too much? That I rarely say yes. Well, we can talk about that, Leanne. I think that it could be just that you protect yourself. Maybe you were, I don't know the context, but certainly people do say no a lot, right?
Yep.
Because they have been yes people, and that could be a context here.
Yep.
That they've said yes so much that now it's just no, because it's a protector of your inner self. So
sometimes it's deserved.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yep.
So, okay, before I run, don't play music yet. One, thank you for people who over the past couple of weeks have been seeing, I sent out stuff and put out stuff on my New England Patriots Foundation charity and donating. And I've had lovely donations come in and trickle in every day. And remembering that I do, if you're living in the area, and I will post this up on, it's already there, but I'll post it up again today. If you're living in the area on February 2nd, I'm having a big event that you can come and listen to Dave Russo, who's been on the show, and his comedic talents. And then we also have musical bingo, and Tito's and Jackson Tesmezcal are sponsors, sponsoring my event, which I'm so grateful for and loving them. And also the Inn on Golden Pond is also sponsoring me again this year. And if you book with them up in New Hampshire, and mention my name, they will contribute a little bit of money each time someone books through the inn and uses my name towards the marathon itself. Plus, they're giving away a 2-night stay, as they always do with their beautiful inn that comes with a lot of other things. So I will post up my link. I will post up my Super Bowl squares that are $100 a square. And there's cash payouts. Not a lot, because remember, it's for charity, but there are cash payouts. But there's a lot going on. And so, but I thank everybody in advance that has already done that. And if you haven't, please go do that and help me run my 11th Boston Marathon. And I will see you guys in 2 weeks.
Oh, that's right. We're off next week.
That's right.
Yep.
All right.